Let's talk John Harbaugh with the New York Giants. First of all, I'm gonna ask you to grade this head coaching hire, and then I'm gonna ask you what is the immediate outlook for the New York Giants with John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I mean, this is an A. I think there's no way. When we talked about this last week, I challenged the Mara and the Tish family, and I said, you need to remember who you are. You need to remember that you're the New York Giants and you're not the New York Jets. And you need to do whatever it takes to make sure that that's the case. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't let John Harbaugh leave the building. They didn't let John Harbaugh go take any of his other interviews. They are paying John Harbaugh $20 million a year. A 5-year, $100 million contract makes him the second highest paid head coach behind only Andy Reid. This is a big swing for them, and it's one that needed to happen. You know that John Harbaugh met with Jackson Dart. Obviously, that was a big piece of this. He is going to be only, like we kind of discussed on a previous podcast, we knew that he was not going to want to report to Joe Sheen. He's not going to be reporting to Joe Sheen. He's going to be reporting directly to the owners. So to me, the Giants knocked this out of the park. They did exactly what they needed to do to get the best guy for the job. And now we wait to see how the staff shakes out. And I think instantaneously, the Giants are a contender because they have the best coach in that division by far.
Yeah, I agree with that as far as the best coach notion. When I look at it talking about immediate impact, right? I think you look at the New York Giants and you say, you know what? Y'all are going to be tough, right? Because John Harbaugh always coaches a tough football team, especially in the trenches. So I think he immediately fixes the offensive line issues and the
Yep.
defensive line issues. And then I think about him bringing in, he's probably going to bring in Greg Roman, right? Because both of these Harbaugh brothers, they swap out Greg Roman like it's nothing, right? He's probably the
100%.
third brother of the Harbaugh brothers because they always take care of Greg Roman, no matter where either
Oh,
one of
that's
them
funny.
goes. So I'm think the run game, right? And there's something I want to get to too in regards to taking his job. I think he's hired to try to get the most out of Jackson Dart, but he's also not married to Jackson Dart. There's been
Correct.
some big national media pundits, right, that have spoke on and said his number one job is to fix Jackson Dart. No, his number one job is to fix the New York Giants, right, and get them
Correct.
rowing in the right direction. And then I think after he fixes that, then you can worry about, okay, is Jackson Dart going to be the quarterback for me of the future? If not, I think him and Lamar has already had that conversation that, you know what, if you don't feel that this is the guy, go find your guy, right? And John Harbaugh has proven that, you know what, I'm going to give whoever I need to give control to be able to go find that quarterback that can make a difference. So for all of those different reasons, when you're talking about establishing culture, when you're talking about establishing a good footprint, reputation, he's won a Super Bowl and wanting to win football games the way the New York Giants used to win football games, John Harbaugh could get there. And so that way I give it an A plus also.
And I think the point that you hit on is an important one because I understand there was a lot of excitement about Jackson Dart, but don't get it twisted. This was not a spectacular rookie season for Jackson Dart. There was
Mm-hmm.
some good moments, not great moments, good moments. There were some fun moments, and there was some ridiculous moments in this rookie season. It is John Harbaugh has the cachet to be able to say we need to move off of this guy even though this market is kind of obsessed with this idea of Jackson Dart being the guy. And it's because he has won with a guy like Joe Flacco and he's won with a guy like Lamar Jackson. He's one of the few head coaches in the history of the NFL who has taken what he does and won a Super Bowl and then completely changed
Mm-hmm.
schematically how they win football games to better suit Lamar Jackson. And because of that, he has a certain reputation, a certain respect, a certain cachet when he walks in the building. And I think that's the most important part here. And I like how you said it, right? This is about the New York Giants becoming the best version of themselves and getting back to who they were for the entirety of this franchise, but haven't been since Tom Coughlin left.
Yep, I agree with that. Let's go to the NFC South. We're going to hot Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski is now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Same thing. I'm gonna ask you to give this a grade, and then I want to talk about the quarterback situation with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. So first, give this a grade, and then let me know who you think would be the starting quarterback week one.
Yeah, I like this a lot. This is an A for me as well. Stefanski is a really good coach. He's a two-time Coach of the Year award winner with Cleveland, which is almost impossible to do because it's the Cleveland Browns. So when you think about him and what he does best and the roster of offensive weapons that they have, man, if you're a Bijan Robinson fantasy owner in a dynasty league, you are like, hell yes, sign me up for running the damn ball because you have one of the most explosive offenses, one of the most explosive running back rooms in the NFL. And I think Stefanski is the right guy. And he's also, again, this is another unique situation where he is going to be answering directly to not general manager, because they haven't placed that yet, Matt Ryan, new president of football operations that's been brought in by owner Arthur Blank, which I think is going to be very interesting. So this is a home run for Atlanta as well. I really like this fit, and I'm very excited to see how this whole offense kind of shakes out. And he's connected, it hasn't been finalized, but to some of the more hot coaching candidates from who's going to come along with him on his staff, and that I think will be a good thing, obviously, for Atlanta as well.
Yeah, Kevin Stefanski to Atlanta. I'm gonna give it a B minus. I'm gonna give it a B minus. I know he can coach the offensive side of the football, but the only thing that he failed to do, and is something that Atlanta needs, was find a young quarterback and develop him, right? And I don't know if he's the type of head coach where he doesn't have much patience for young guys, right? And listen, I want a guy that can run my system, step in right away and play football. So maybe the Atlanta Falcons decide to be free agent guys, right? Like they make
Yeah.
a big splash trade via like how the Detroit Lions did for Jared Goff, or how the Los Angeles Rams did for Matthew Stafford, right? That's the part that I'm still waiting on, is for him to kind of figure out, okay, who is he going to pick as his signal caller moving forward? And it can't be Kirk Cousins for the next 5 years, right? Because he's coming off an injury. Obviously, he played down the stretch. He played well, but he's an older quarterback. So
Yeah.
the ability to find a franchise guy and develop him, I think, would be huge for Kevin Stefanski. Haven't seen him do that part of it. He won with Joe Flacco. He won with Baker Mayfield, but neither one of those guys were long-term answers for the Cleveland Browns.
I think to your point, that's why it's going to be very interesting to see how the staff finalizes out, because one of the guys that's been reported to come along with him is Tommy Reese, who a lot of people have a lot of respect for as far as him being a quarterback coach, offensive play caller. He could be the right guy to be coming alongside Stefanski, whether or not, that's why I like that we are doing it this way. We're reacting directly just to the head coaches that have been finalized. But one of the things that is very important for NFL fans to know is it's not just about your head coach. It's about the entire staff that comes along with them. Who is their defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, who's calling plays, passing game coordinator, especially when you look at where your franchise is and the holes that they have and where they need to go to turn the corner, right? And so I like the Stefanski hire, but this is going to come down to a lot of who he brings along with him and how they handle the Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins / quarterback situation.
Yep, let's keep this train going. Jeff Hafley is now the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Give me a grade and talk about expectations for the Miami Dolphins entering the 2026 NFL season.
Yeah, this was a kind of came out of nowhere today.
Mhm.
I know that Jeff Hafley has a lot of respect around the league. This is a big loss for the Green Bay Packers, and one that is going to be a big addition for what the Miami Dolphins, quite frankly, need to get back to. And I am leaving this at a B with the opportunity to be upgraded depending on what the staff is around it, only because this is a first time head coach, right? So that part's
In
unproven.
the
You've
NFL, yep.
got yeah, and that's hard. And you're not in Green Bay anymore. You're in Miami. They could not be more opposite situations if you tried, as far as distractions off the field, how to handle it. Like, Green Bay is the easiest place to get your players to lock in. Miami is the most difficult place to get your players to lock in. So how does he handle that? I think it's the right move for Miami, because they needed to move into a direction of two steps back towards where Brian Flores had this team. They need some toughness back in this division when they're going to be playing the likes of Mike Vrabel now that we've seen with New England, and what you're going to face with Buffalo. And the Jets are the Jets, so we don't have to care about them. But that division as a whole, right? You're going to have to, this team in New England is now a tough team that's going to be a hard out each and every year, and Buffalo's Buffalo. So I think they needed to do this. This is a great hire for them. I didn't think that Jeff Hafley was was going to be a guy that left Green Bay, but it's an opportunity to take a head coaching job. And he's obviously not going to be tied to any of the quarterbacks that are there. And I think this will be a good opportunity to transition this team because they have to, because I can't imagine that Tua comes back from what we've seen in Miami.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's the biggest part, and that's where I land. Right, no Tua Tagovailoa, obviously not married to any quarterback. I think Zach Wilson was on a 1 year deal. Quinn
Yep.
Ewers was a 7th round pick, so you can have an entirely new quarterback room. Halfley is a defensive guy, right? So the most
Yep.
important hire for him is who's going to be his offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, and that's why I have to give this a B minus, is because there's still that unknown part, right? Like,
Of
will he
course.
be able to get there? We know he can coach the X's and O's of defense, right? But can he be a well-rounded enough coach? And does he have the connections? And does he have the cachet to come in and be like, you know what, this quarterback, this who we're going to get, this who we're going to draft, we're going to develop him and get it rolling in the right direction? Because at this point, if you talk about Miami Dolphins with a bad offense, you're talking about probably the worst team in the NFL, right? Like the
Yeah.
thing that kept Miami above float was the fact that Mike McDaniel was such a supreme play caller and play designer. If you bring in average play calling and play design, the Miami Dolphins are picking top 3, right? And probably
Yeah.
not 3.
100%.
So I like the coach. I
Me
just
too.
wonder about the situation, right? Just
I,
with them having so much dysfunction.
Yeah, and I hope that the Dolphins really struggled at the first half of the season, but the back half there was some things to build off of. And one of those things was defensively they played a lot better in the second half of the year. And I think that's where if you're a defensive play caller and a guy like Jeff Hafley, you're excited at the opportunity to go kind of set the tone defensively and hope to build off of what was, if you look at the back half of the year, a much better way to end your year, because at one point we thought McDaniel was keeping his job, right? And so this turns out to be, a different situation than we had originally thought it would be. But I like this hire a lot. I think it's the right move for them. Like you said, it's going to come down to who he brings along with him. But this is a team that needs to find a new identity, because we saw the peak of the Mike McDaniel Tua era and it wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's time to figure out what that new version of the Miami Dolphins is. And the only way to do that is to really kind of switch gears from who is representing your team. And maybe he brings backup quarterback Malik Willis. Maybe that's the move that they decide to go in, a guy that he's very comfortable and familiar with in Green Bay. That could be a nice move in a bridge contract that they don't, because they're going to be in a tough spot financially with Tua. Malik's probably one of the guys that would actually they would be able to fit with the cap casualty they're going to have to take with Tua.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's do this. This is breaking news, right, for us. Robert Saleh is now the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Things
Wow.
getting finalized. Reaction to that? Do you think that's what's best for this franchise when we think about Cam Ward being selected #1 overall, this defense not playing great, the offensive identity, the move to Robert Saleh? What's your takeaway?
Wow, I love this. I love a breaking news. It's like Adam Schefter's on the show with me here tonight with Keith Sanchez. Listen, Robert Saleh, if you couldn't understand how great of a coach he is after watching what he did this year, I don't know how much more he has to prove, right? When you're talking about losing literally all of your linebackers, including your rookie linebackers, all of your superstar players, and being able to do what he did. And I understand Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller, but understand this: he doesn't touch the defensive side of the football with Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
That was Robert Saleh's coaching. And you saw it. You saw the energy he brings. You saw a total revitalization of the man, the coach. And he had to wipe the stink off from the New York Jets. And that's, something that happens for most people that leave the New York Jets. They got to wipe the stink off because it's a bad franchise. And that's exactly what he did. And to me, Tennessee absolutely needed to, while they're watching the guy they moved away from in Mike Vrabel, they needed to bring a guy like that back. They needed to bring some toughness back. That's the type of coach that I think Cam Ward will do best with. And that's the type of guy that's going to bring this franchise forward and really tap into some key pieces that they have defensively to get the best out of them.
Yeah, and I'll say this, right? How I question, obviously, for Jeff Hafley with the Miami Dolphins, and then I talked about Stefanski with finding a quarterback, right? They have their quarterback in place, right? And then secondly, when it comes down to finding a play caller, listen, Robert Saleh has been with the 49ers, right, for I think upwards about 5 years. So he's been
Yeah.
around some of the greatest offensive minds, right? So he's just going to pick off of that Kyle Shanahan tree and say, you know what, quarterback coach, you come with me. You can be the offensive
Mhm.
coordinator and we'll figure this thing out. So I trust the relationships that Robert Saleh has built being in that 49ers building an organization, that he knows what good offensive play callers look like because he's faced Kyle Shanahan at practice so many times. And not only that, I think Kyle Shanahan will give him the nod and help him out and say, look, this guy is ready to rock and roll. You can take this guy with you, XYZ, right? And be able to promote these guys. So I think this is a good hire because I didn't even think about that. But the last time y'all had success was with Mike Vrabel, like you said, right? And that was a defensive minded head coach that was coming in there to instill some type of physical temperament and just culture.
And you got to remember, this team moved off of Vrabel in a very weird, contentious way at the end, right? There was a moment where he's put into the Ring of Honor in New England and he says, this will always be my home. And apparently the owners in Tennessee didn't like it and they move off of him. And you can't help but think that they're sitting there watching the guy they moved off of have now play in an AFC
Mhm.
championship game with a young Drake May and go, man, oh man, what if, right? What if Mike Vrabel was here with our young quarterback? What would this team look like? And I think the quickest way to get over that and to move off of and not let yourself live in the what if is to change your reality and bring somebody who brings that same type of juice. And that's Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is a player's coach. He's a guy that's very well respected around the league. I don't I know we're making jokes about the Jets, but it really is a toxic franchise where nobody has an opportunity to win with the current way that Woody Johnson has things structured. So I think there was an agreement and an understanding with Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan, a longtime friend of his. Listen, you're going to come back, you're going to get yourself right, and we're going to make sure you're put in the right position to go take a head coaching job. And that's exactly what happened for him with Tennessee.